One email routed through Germany. That's all it took. And the entire Los Angeles school system goes into lockdown. And we as a nation are faced once again with asking how we tell the delusional from the dangerous. Donald Trump would be the first, of course, to tell anyone who will listen they are delusional if they believe he has any chance of losing the Republican presidential nomination. No delusions here, just well-honed political fact. The fact is clear with regard to the single most debated issue in American sports. The man who could not tell the truth for 25 years still wants your sympathy. But will Peter Edward Rose ever be awarded home at the Hall of Fame? One thing is certain in America at the moment. We are surrounded by evil at so many levels. I've got one that begins very close to home that needs to be noted and rooted out every time. So take notes. They'll help. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Tuesday, December 15th, 2015.
The school district safeguards 750,000 lives every day. When they make a decision, they have to take into account the safety of the children of Los Angeles. I think it's irresponsible, based on facts that have yet to be determined, to criticize that decision at this point.
There was a time when children and teachers believed they were safe at school. Parents had no worry leaving their kids out of their sight for 8 or more hours. There was a time. No more. Not when one email, can shut down a school system in the second largest city in America. The ramifications of what happened Tuesday in Southern California are enormous. More than 3.5 million people directly affected. Law enforcement stretched to the limit. And the inability to avoid being seen as overreacting. All exactly what a true terrorist desires. Let's get to it. Our guest is president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, former assistant director of the Criminal Investigative Division at the FBI, Ron Hosko, along with the former sergeant in the New York City Police Department, best-selling author of The Criminal Investigative Function, a guide for new investigators, Joe Giacalone. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being with us. And Joe, seeing as you come from the cop background, I'm going to ask you. It's what they said in Los Angeles. People right out there are indignant at this point at how dare some people say that they knee-jerked, but did they to you?
No, unfortunately, with the climate going on, especially in light of the San Bernardino incident that just happened about a week and a half ago, I think everybody, especially in California, is a little bit on edge. And I think that the school district does the right thing in this respect because, God forbid something did happen, they're going to be questioning them too. Like saying, like, what were you thinking? So, listen, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, so to speak. And I think that they were better off taking that approach right now and saying we're going to cancel school and send everybody home.
All right. Now, I mentioned him a few moments ago. At a press conference today, here's the L.A. Police Chief, Charlie Beck, laying out just some of the details of the threat to the school district. Here he is. All right, we don't have that soundbite right now, but I'll tell you what, we do know that some of the details, Ron, and I wanted to get to you on this, is specifically what they heard from this email or what they read. I am a devout Muslim and was once against violence, but I have teamed up with a local jihadist cell as it is the only way I'll be able to accomplish my massacre the correct way. Seriously, Ron, fair to say that when you see something like this, but it really is in the new paradigm that we live in right now. It's the new world that we live in. You never know if this is true, if this is just some 12-year-old out there having fun. You've got to react hard and fast, yes?
Well, you have to react, but you have to react thoughtfully. And, fortunately, my organization had a threat assessment process, particularly as related to weapons of mass destruction, use of chem bio weapons. And here, there were indicators, and really it comes down to this. What are the indicators that tell you credible threat or not a credible threat? And for me, when did the school district get those indicators? When did they have a good understanding? What was their timeline to make a decision? All of those play a role in determining whether this was a good response or whether it was a wild overreaction.
So, Ron, let me get to that word here, the credible threat, because not long after this, we had officials in New York City who said they received the same anonymous threat. They deemed it not credible. I don't mean to cast any aspersions on what happens in Los Angeles, but is it possible that the guys in New York, Ron, simply have been dealing with this for so long and they're maybe just a little bit better at trying to sift through some of the fog?
It could well be that. John Miller came from an FBI background and an LAPD background, for that matter. He's their intelligence chief up there. Both of these departments have ready access to FBI resources through Joint Terrorism Task Force participation, and so they could trigger that FBI threat review process. Frankly, Ed, for me, when we start talking about 32 jihadists or participants in this plot, and when there are references to nerve gas is something that the FBI process is really equipped to address. They're going to look at the language, how this message is constructed, the source of it, and come back pretty solidly, fairly quickly. And had they had that in hand, I don't know. If they did, and the FBI is saying not credible, and they went to this extreme anyway, then I think LA authorities have to take a second look and say, we need to revisit this and think about it harder the next time.
Joe, from the beat cop's perspective here, because these are the guys and gals that every single day are being called on. When we see something like this, they've got to get to the schools. They're the ones that are immediately armed. They're the ones that are facing it right up front, first and foremost. Do you get the sense that whether it's Los Angeles, New York, Peoria, it makes no difference, that the beat cop is prepared for something like this, knowing full well that there could be a level out there? There could be one, there could be two, there could be 20 at any given time.
Well, unfortunately, this is the sign of the times, and I think every officer has this in the back of their head, and I think a lot of civilians have it in the back of their head too when they go out to a movie theater or a restaurant now. Between what happened in France too and what happened here in the United States, I think it's on the forefront of everybody's mind. But one of the problems with policing is that training costs a lot of money, and to get people especially prepared for situations like this is going to cost a lot of money. And I don't know if these jurisdictions have the budget for it. So police officers are doing what they always do, just go out there and do the job, and whatever risk to themselves, they just do it. And
isn't that part of it, Joe? I wanted to get to the money here because you're right. In this new era that we're dealing in right now, and after we saw what happened in San Bernardino and how well those two individuals were armed and ready for a war, if you will, that we've got to stop this, Joe. Whether it's the mayor, whether it's the president, it doesn't make a difference what it is. Don't we have to put more money? We're not just throwing money at it, but we've got to put more money into this to fight it, or we're fighting a losing battle. Yes?
Sure, the money has to go into training and equipment. For instance, in New York City, we don't have M16 machine guns in every police car. Not like we saw in California, where every one of these cops has a high-powered automatic rifle. I mean, we don't have that here in New York City. You have 25,000 cops, and 24,000 of them have 9mm handguns. So I mean, this is another issue that we have to think about. And I know there's always talk about the militarization of the police, but after what we just witnessed in San Bernardino, this is the reason why we have this equipment and why the police have to, handle certain situations with this type of heavy equipment. Because you know what, going up against people with machine guns at this point, we can't. Those bullet-resistant vests aren't going to stop anything.
Now, there's a good point, Ron. In light of where we are right now, these are again local police departments. They're very good. LAPD, NYPD, a lot of them very good at what they do. But have we reached a point in our national security where the FBI has to be 1A, if you will, called in on something like this, where you've got to bring them in almost immediately because you've maybe got more money, different training, better ways to see the credible threat, and to bring them in even a second past the time you get something like this could be a second too late?
Well, I think for a lot of departments, calling the FBI early is a good option. For bigger, mature, departments like LAPD and NYPD, they can get a lot of good things done on their own with maybe FBI assistance in the background or intelligence support, but they have the manpower and they have the capability. But Joe's right on the mark. This takes an investment. What's important to us? And we've seen the failure to invest in our vetting processes for illegal, proposed immigrants, people coming over on visas. We have seen the failure to secure our own borders here. We need to rethink our strategies as a national government. We need to rethink our leadership, frankly.
Okay, I got 30 seconds to each of you on the same question here. Ron, to you first. Are we reaching a point where the schools, the kids, the teachers are so vulnerable that we have to consider putting armed guards and armed individuals at every school in America?
You're seeing a lot of school resource officers out there already. You see magnetometers in a lot of the inner city schools. So I think we're trying to strike the right balance right now. But clearly this pendulum is swinging back in the direction of more law enforcement, more arms.
Same thing to you, Joe. It's not something we're happy about doing, but do we need to do it?
Well, we've had that issue here in New York City for many years already, where we had, armed police officers at these schools, especially some of the most violent schools. And I can tell you, some of the places I worked in, some of these kids are armed better than the terrorists will be. So that could be an interesting battle.
But do you think that we're eventually getting there, where it's going to be every school?
Well, unfortunately, it will, but we hope that we don't have another massacre like we saw up in Connecticut or whatever in order to have this, take place.
I remember what happened in Columbine so many years ago because I was close to the people out there in that community. I never want to see that happen again. Ron Hosko, Joe Giacalone, I want to thank you both for joining us. We will talk again soon. We will also stay up on this story, and we will have to continue to investigate where America goes from here in keeping its kids safe. Stay with us. The Hard Line continues.